Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. So today's video is all about the mundane and ordinary items that I feel I can't witch without. Now, before I get into it, I just want to say that I did actually already film this video a few weeks ago, and unfortunately when I went to edit I had lost the beginning. So at some point the video will change, I'll be wearing something different, and that will be the rest of the video. So do forgive me for that. I am sure that I recorded it, I just don't know what happened to the recording. So it's happened a few times to me and it's rather annoying. Anyway, so just before I get into it, I would also like to say that this is the first time that I've filmed since my channel has literally gone past the 1,000 subscribers mark. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for subscribing, and to all of you, to the people who've been with me from the beginning and to those new subscribers. I'm so grateful that you are here and that you enjoy hearing about my experiences working with tarot and witchcraft and magic, and I have a lot of ideas for videos to come that I'm really excited about creating. I would also love to do a giveaway, so that is on the cards. I am currently in the middle of moving house as well, so there's going to be a little bit of chaos, and so I just want to get all of that stuff to one side before I do go ahead with the giveaway. But there will be a giveaway at some point soon, so look out for that. I also have a new Instagram profile which I actually started that was called Emily's Tarot Magic, and I started it a few weeks ago, and within a few days I had been hacked, and I don't know what happened. Overnight I got a huge amount of those automated bot messages from accounts seeming to be about dogs, which was really strange. So that was really odd. And then I kept getting messages about people having changed my password, and I think that was somewhere in the EU. So I'm not sure entirely what happened. I tried to recover my account a number of times, and it kept getting flagged, and then I was just suspended from the account because obviously something was happening. People who changed my account had obviously done something. So within about a week that account had started and finished, and I decided just to start again. So I created another account and I've called it Emily's Tarot and Magic, and I'm actually thinking about changing the name of my YouTube channel to Emily's Tarot and Magic as well, so it reflects more of a balance between my tarot practice and my witchcraft practice, which I do consider to be holistic and like a Venn diagram, you know, like involved in with each other. Not that those who practice witchcraft have to read tarot, not that those who read tarot have to be witches or be spiritual. So yeah, just that is my experience, and so that's what I was thinking about doing. So let me know what your thoughts are below. So all of that rambling aside, I want to just get straight on in to the video. And I will make a disclaimer that although I'm going to be talking about mundane and ordinary items that I feel I can't witch without, of course I can witch without these things. I can witch without any of these things, and I would just want to emphasize that I feel that for a witch, a magical practitioner, the magic is in the heart of the practitioner, of the witch, the magician, however you identify or don't identify. That's completely down to you, but I feel that the magic is inside you, and for me I definitely feel like that. And not just from a perspective of being able to do work on the astral travel, and you know, practitioners do create things like astral altars which are incredible. I have done a little bit of work on that, but I've never been able to keep it static in one place, so I always end up having to rebuild it again and recraft it, and it looks different every time. So I've not managed to keep something in the same place when I revisit it again. But I do love that kind of thing. There's so many different ways that you can witch without anything other than yourself, and a great book for that I think is Matt Oren's Psychic Witch. That book is so good for beginners as well as intermediate and advanced practitioners, because it goes into the basics of energetic work, grounding and centering, as well as like meditation work and visualization and things like that, those techniques that you really want to work on before you start practicing magic, but then also ways that you can practice magic using just your mind, and it's so incredibly powerful. I also think that it's so interesting learning about protection magic and boundaries, creating those boundaries with your mind by creating energetic shields in many different ways. So I think that that magic is really special as well. I also work with energy quite a lot, working with feeling the energy, working with grounding. That's one of my favorite things to do, because I really feel like it just helps me to come back to the middle again and to feel just peace and contented and connected to the earth and where I am. So those kinds of practices are so essential, and you don't need anything but yourself and the earth somewhere to be, outside potentially, but even if you can't get outside, just yourself. Those things are really magical innately, and those things you can work on before you have any tools or anything. Again, visualization, meditation work, all of those things you can work on to strengthen your psychic abilities and your intuition, those areas of your development that you can work on before you even have anything or work with any other kind of magic. I found in my practice that that's been some of the most powerful magic. And with working with energy, grounding, centering, and then pulling energy up from the earth or transmuting energies from within myself with the permission and blessing of Mother Earth, you know, transmuting those energies, bringing them back through me, visualizing those energies, feeling those energies. I actually visualize and sense those energies within me, and then I use that in my spell work. So in spell work, I'll always cleanse first, cleanse my space, cleanse myself, ground and center, and then ground again, pull up lots and lots of beautiful energy, and also bring it up through my head and then bring in energy from the heavens as well. And I will use all of that energy to work with, and I will channel that through my hands if I am doing a working where I'm using my hands. I often use my hands and my breath, the witch's breath, to enchant, to bring magic, to breathe life into whatever it is I'm doing. And those things are literally my hands, myself, my body, and my mind as well, all of those things. So I just wanted to emphasize before I go into any of the stuff that you don't actually need anything to be a witch. And if you feel that you are a witch or a magical person, magical practitioner, however you want to align or associate yourself, whatever aligns with you, whatever resonates for you, you can start with these things first. Having said that as well though, a lot of these things are things that you will already have. A lot of these things are things that everyone already has. Normal people, or muggles as, you know, you could say, but with J.K. Rowling being the way that that person is, I don't really want to refer to Harry Potter, so let's just, yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say. Someone recently said we need another word, and I think that's probably correct. We need another word for muggle. It works so well, but yeah, anyway, lots of people will have these tools, these things in their house, and they can be used magically, and you probably are already doing that. But these are some of the things that I love to use, and actually my magic wouldn't be the same without. So instead of I can't witch without, because although that's the way I'm sort of putting this video out there as, you know, obviously I can witch without it, but I just like witching with these things, and they really help to deepen my practice and enhance my practice in so many incredible magical ways. And these are things that I've been doing all of my life as well, so they're things that have stayed with me, and they're things that are inherently magical in me, and it makes the everyday magical as well, having these things in my toolbox and as part of my practice, as part of me, as part of my life. So I really wanted to share them. And another side of it as well is that a lot of these things, because you already have them, because they're already a natural part of your ordinary mundane life, it means that you can obviously do it in the closet, you can witch with these things in the closet, and you can also do it really inexpensively on a budget. You probably already have these things, so you don't need to go and spend money. Not all of these things, some of these things you may not have, but a lot of these things you will already have access to, and it means that you don't have to go out there and spend money. Your budget is something that you feel is inhibiting you at the moment. It is something that does not need to inhibit you at all. You can still go ahead and practice the things that you want to practice, and then make a list maybe of the things that you want to pick up, tools, resources, books, things that you'd like to have, decorative items that you'd like to have to enhance your practice and make you feel witchy. You can make a list of those things and keep them, and maybe ask for things for birthdays or Christmases, or, you know, if you have a family who you don't mind talking to about, or, you know, do it in secret, whatever is most comfortable for you. Just ensure that you are safe whatever you are doing. So if you are not in a position to come out of any closet or be seen doing any of these things, then I would really encourage you to stick to doing things that are not using any material items, to stick to things like energy work, visualization, those kinds of practices first. And that will also give you such a good rooting in your practice as well, and real confidence as well, as you sort of branch out and when you are safe, in a safe place, in order to experiment more and have more items to your practice. So after that long introduction, I'm going to get into the first proper item. And the first thing is water. So this is actually my drinking glass. I love these glasses and I do think they look kind of magical as well. There are so many different ways that you can use water in your magical practice. Obviously you use water to stay alive, so you imbibe it. So something great that you can do with your water is to enchant it. You can breathe life into it, as I talked about. You can put your energy into the water. You can also construct sigils according to your purpose and draw them onto the bottom of glasses or water bottles that I like to use. I've done this several times with this water bottle myself and I love that practice. It works so incredibly well. So you can bless your water daily as you drink it. Obviously you might also choose to have fresh water on your altar or on your ancestor altar and change it out regularly, and it's also a representation of the element of water on your altar space. You can use different types of water, so you can use rainwater, moon water of course, which you can use in various different ways. Thunder water or storm water is incredibly powerful. Running water is great for spells where you want to release something, let go of something, as long as you're not putting any pollution or anything that cannot biodegrade into a body of water. Sea water as well. I also think it's fascinating using stagnant waters. So we live near a forest and there are still bodies of waters that are very, very stagnant and very unappetizing, unappealing, and I think that that kind of water is perfect for things like banishings and more baneful magics if you are that way inclined. So that is a perfect thing to have as well. And you can obviously use different phases of the moon, so you can collect new moon water, waxing moon water, full moon water, waning moon water and dark moon water as well for your different purposes. I love to use water to scry into as well and to use with the full moon. So obviously you can collect moon water, but actually having a bowl of water outside underneath the full moon and working with the moon in that way, scrying into the water and just connecting with the spirit, the energy of the moon, drawing down the moon into yourself with that bowl of water is just beautiful. You can also use waters like dew and rainwater that is on plants, and you can tie in that herbal magic. I recently talked a little bit about this in my summer solstice video because there was some light rainfall on the grass and on the plants, so I actually dabbed it on myself, used it to anoint myself and on my face as a glamour spell, a beauty ritual, which is incredibly beautiful, it's incredibly magical, incredibly powerful. Beautiful for things like self-love and healing. You can create room sprays, sacred space sprays. You can use alcohol or witch hazel to extend the life of those types of sprays as well. You can create special drinks. Obviously you create coffee for yourself or teas. You can use herbs to create tea. I always like to use actual organic food grade teas. Obviously organic doesn't have to be so, but it has to be food grade if you're going to use herbs, and make sure obviously that you're not just foraging a herb and then making a tea out of it. Make sure that you're safe. I think that's really, really key. I am not opposed to buying a beautiful tea. I do love teas. I drink a lot of coffee as well, but some of my favourite witchy teas to drink are peppermint tea, lemon balm tea and jasmine tea. I also really, really like black tea with milk, and I usually have oat milk, and things like chai tea as well, incredibly beautiful. I also think it's really, really lovely to sain with water as well. So if you have some blessed water, some holy water or some moon water, you can have it in a sacred vessel on your altar or in your sacred space, and you can use herbs, tied up bundles of herbs to dip into the water and then literally bless your space with it or yourself, and that's a cleansing practice that you can use as well. So it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. Obviously as well, you can take sacred baths, spiritual showers. You can use different herbs, different essential oils and bath salts, different bath oils in your bath, and just imbue your intention into that water as you bathe in it, and to clear away, to wash away, to cleanse away any impurities, anything that is stagnant sticking to you. One of the things that I've always done is literally as soon as I've come home from work, when I've worked away from the home, especially when I worked in London, I literally got home, I took off my clothes, I had a shower or a bath, and then I was into my pyjamas, and my clothes that I wore went into the wash. You can also wash your own clothes as well, and that's a way that I don't think I've ever really heard anyone talking about it in a way that is not just a mundane thing. It's a mundane thing that you can do, but you can actually do it to imbue magical purpose or intent into your clothing. So if you're going to wear a piece of clothing that's very special at a special occasion, you could actually create a special wash for your clothes using some Castile soap and maybe an essential oil and some Florida water, and create a special sacred wash for your clothes, so that when you put it on, after it's dry obviously, then you have that magical intention. Perhaps perhaps you're going for a job interview, or you're speaking at an event, or maybe you're attending something that you're very anxious about and you want to feel really protected, you can work that into the intention of your spell as part of that with the water. And then another thing that goes along that is of course making room washes or cleaning solutions, again using like a Castile soap, essential oils. You can use things like lemon peel, orange peel, and dried herbs like mint to create that freshness. Pine as well is beautiful. Those are things I absolutely love to do. You can use oils as well to create polishes. I've experimented a bit with cleaning because I clean a lot in my house. There are just so many ways that you can use water in your practice, and those are just a few of them. So yeah, I'm sure there's so many more. Along the same lines is of course salt. I usually have a sea salt, which is much nicer than this. This is literally just plain bog standard salt. I wouldn't mind using this for workings, but for most of my workings I do prefer using a sea salt because it's just purer with less other things in it. This can be used for cleansing, purification, and of course protection. This is one of the oldest, most simplest forms of protection magic, and it's something that everyone seems to know about. You know, a circle of salt, it's in all the films. Everyone knows about this, and you can literally use it in so many different ways. You can make salt blends with your herbs. You can put this in the corners of your home, along your front door. I would not use this outside or outdoors or in any rituals outdoors because it can be dangerous for wildlife and animals, and it also will kill the grass, so just beware about that point. But salt is really, really magically potent and a really essential tool for a witch to have. I've also used this in some more unpleasant workings such as bindings, banishings, and the use of crafting things like protection powder, banishing powder, and banishing oils, etc. These are things that you can use in that to protect yourself. So yeah, this is fantastic. So jars is a big thing. I have a few of these nicer kind of jars that I've purchased for herbs, but I also have these jars that I have collected. This had like a passata sauce in it. I would collect these as well and reuse them for my herbal apothecary. So basically you can just save any jars. I think this is kind of a witch cliche, but you have a cupboard of jars that are washed out. I do it with my oil bottles as well, facial oil bottles. I will rinse them out, put them through the dishwasher, make sure they're sterilized, and then I will reuse them for whatever purpose. And sometimes you can get some really beautiful bottles, especially wine bottles and things as well. Wine bottles, gin bottles, facial oil bottles, body oil bottles. There's so many different things that you can use. You can reuse so many of those. So do that. As I said, I have bought a few of these, but you don't need to because you can reuse jars such as this. This I think was a jam jar and I repurposed it. This has got organic jasmine tea in it. So those are all kinds of ways that you can reuse your jars. And now let's just move on to herbs as well, because it just works quite well. I have a herbal apothecary in my sacred space. That is where these two came from. I also have a kitchen herb cupboard, and I keep them separate. So I actually do have thyme in my herbal apothecary and I have thyme in my kitchen, and I do not mix them up. I do the same with coconut oil as well actually. And this is something that is really, really important for safety, because I am not always using things that are edible in my magical space, in my sacred space, and I do not want there to be any chance of a crossover from like a resin that is not edible or a herb that's not edible into an edible herb that I then put it back in the kitchen. It's just a complete no-no and just not worth it. So if there was any question, I would just not do it. So basically I have double. So for this is jasmine tea, but this came from my apothecary, so I will not be ever using this to drink. I have more of this in the kitchen that I've separated out and they stay separate. So that's how that works. So I have a lot of herbs that I have purchased as teas I like to use magically as well as in the kitchen. Again, this is how you can bring magic with herbs, using teas, using them to make teas, baking, cooking. Italian herbs are fantastic for that, and things like basil, thyme, oregano, sage, they're all like some of the most popular witches' herbs as well. So you can really fly under the radar with those. I would say if you are in the closet and you're trying to take some herbs from your home's kitchen cupboard, that you save a spare jar, have a spare jar and decant some and keep some separate, because I really just would not want any kind of contamination or crossover. So that's what I would do in that case if you are sort of siphoning stuff off that you already have. Of course, if you're using it for creating kitchen witchery and you're literally imbuing your magic into a beautiful pasta sauce or a beautiful cake that you're baking, then of course, you know, that's different. We're talking about things where you're doing candle workings, creating incenses, creating oils, you're doing baneful workings, you're doing any kind of like charm bags, spell jars, poppet making, anything like that where you're using other items that are not edible and safe for consumption. So some of these herbs, like the mugwort, I had purchased this dry, and there are various places that I like to go for those. I will link a few below, but I also harvest some of my own herbs. So I will use herbs from the garden to create my own herb bundles like this for smoke cleansing, and I basically will harvest them and dry them and hang them. I use things like nettles, rosemary, garden sage, thyme, lavender and roses, all of those kind of common, well-known things that we have in our garden. So I will also pick a few petals or leaves off of various different plants. I will always connect to the plant first and ask, and they are in my garden so I'm allowed to, and then I will leave an offering if it's okay, and I'll create little charm bags or use them in jar spells and workings like that. In terms of foraging, of course, you can forage close to you if you are lucky enough to live in an area where you are able to. Just be aware that there are some places where you are not permitted to forage, so make sure that wherever it is you are foraging, you are actually allowed to take whatever it is you're foraging for. Make sure it's not on a dog path or anywhere near lots of traffic and high polluted area, and just be aware as well of pesticides and things like that, which can, you know, many places can be sprayed. So somewhere in woodlands or forests or country fields are a good option, but again, if it's foot height, just be aware that there may have been dogs walking around that area. Also, when you forage, you want to be really careful what you're foraging for, and I really recommend getting a plant identifier app and making sure that you know exactly what you're foraging for, and if there's any doubt, just don't bother. It's just not worth it. Use a different herb or a different item that you can supplement that has a similar correspondence for your working. It's just not worth it. Do not take the risk. If it is something like a nettle that you can easily identify and that is edible, that is absolutely fine, but again, be careful that it's not in amongst other plants, some of which may be toxic. And again, when you are foraging, if you're foraging, you know what the plant is, you're foraging safely, all the other things are ticked off, don't take too much, because the butterflies and the bees, the wildlife, also need them, and so you taking them all is not fair or ethical in any kind of way. I really work on leaving at least 80% or more, so I will probably only take about 5%, if that, of whatever is available. So if it's just a tiny little thing, I would just leave it and just use something else. But if there's a huge amount of something, gather a little bit up, take some. Don't take more than what you need, because it will probably go to waste anyway. Those are ways in which you can forage for herbs in your local area. Otherwise, there's no shame in picking some up from a shop. You know, supporting witchy stores is really fantastic, and I would definitely recommend that above other ways of getting herbs. You can get herbs from supermarkets though, so for something like tarragon or a kitchen herb, it's a really sound way of getting them. Things like spices as well, like paprika, cayenne pepper. Of course, the supermarket will have them, and not at hiked up prices. For more specifically witchy kind of herbs like mugwort or broom tops or wormwood, then definitely I think going to a magical practitioner, someone that you know and trust, or if it's something that is commonly used in tea like jasmine, then I don't think there's any shame in buying a good tea brand. So I will spend £5 maybe on a big lot of loose tea that is obviously food grade and organic, and then I know I can separate it out. I can use some of it in my magical space for other workings and some of it in the kitchen for drinks and items that I will eat or consume. So that's herbs. Pepper is another one. This is a pepper grinder made by my dad because he works with wood, and this is so wonderful. So, and of course pepper can be used again for protection and for banishing magic as well. I absolutely love using pepper, and it works really, really well. I think pepper works so beautifully well, especially in bindings and banishings. So it's something I like to have. I brought this one to show you because this is the kitchen one. It lives in the kitchen. It belongs to the kitchen witch part and just the cooking part, but I do have one here that I use for magical workings, and these are whole peppercorns again as well. I also think it's quite valuable to have some ground pepper as well for your magical workings, so that you don't actually have to grind it up yourself. That is something that you can utilize as well. I also have a mortar and pestle. I haven't brought that in here. That is in the kitchen, but I don't have a mortar and pestle to use in my magical practice. So that is purely for culinary and for kitchen witch purposes only. So having a good mortar and pestle is something that I really would like to invest in soon in my magical practice. So all of these things, even though they might be mundane, you might not have all of them, and you don't need them all at once. You know, I've been practicing for years and years, and I still don't have everything at all. So yeah, just bear that in mind, that you don't need everything, and you don't need to accumulate it all at once either. So in terms of kitchen witchery and books, actually, books are so magical. Obviously I have a lot of witchy books. I also like to have books that are like field guides. They are not inherently witchy, so you could count those. I have a number of those which I will share perhaps in another video, but this will just get too long. But I wanted to share a few of my favourite cookbooks that I feel are really, really magical and powerful. One of my favourite cookbooks is How to Eat by Nigella. I just think the whole way this is written is so incredibly magical. It's about enjoying the food, and there's so many fantastic recipes in here. Nigella is one of my favourites. Ottolenghi is fantastic. So many beautiful vegetarian and vegan recipes. Just so, so beautiful. Tapping into the sort of essence of the plant and the spirit. And obviously it's not magic, but the heart of the witch makes it magical. And you know, a lot of people probably would say that food is magic, even if they're not coming from like a spiritual or esoteric occult kind of perspective. I think there is something magical and special and sacred and beautiful about food, and the preparation of it and the enjoyment of it and the creation of it in order to give people that you love, family, friends, people you're in relationships with, lovers, people you're trying to impress, pleasure and joy and, you know, sustenance and feeding them something so special. So this is one of those beautiful books. I think my sister bought this for me because she absolutely adores Ottolenghi as well. So yeah, this is a fantastic book. This is a book that I bought when I was at university. This is The Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking by Marcella Hazen. I consider this to be a little bit like the Italian Delia. This is just so full of the most incredible recipes. So like polenta, Italian soups, moules and fish, and just really like folk, as well as some like really, really popular and beautiful Italian dishes. There's some real folksy things in here, so things that I would never consider eating, like pigeon. But this is just such a fantastic book, and I actually think some of the older cookbooks, like the Julia Child cookbook, are just so magical, and especially books that come from different areas of the world, so it's tapping into different cuisines and trying and making those different cuisines. There's something so special and magical about it, so I had to mention that because cooking, baking, eating of food has always been something so special to me, and it's actually always been a way that I have given, created, shared magic in my life. This is a newer book as well. This is Fevertree, The Art of Mixing, and this actually came from my mother-in-law. This is not a witchy cocktail book at all. This is just a cocktail book. But again, I think there's so many ways that you can create magic out of this. This is called The Apple of My Eye, and it's got Somerset brandy or Calvados, cranberry juice, lime juice, so you can use the correspondences of these items to create something, or you could just use this as a inspiration to create something for yourself that is magical. I know there are magical spell books that are magical cocktails and such, which you could have, but you know, if you already have a recipe book for cocktails or for drinks or for food, for baking, any kind of cookbook, you can use it to create kitchen witchery out of. You don't have to have something that is necessarily a spell book to create magical food. I especially think the folkloric food, the food that's been passed down generation to generation, so the family recipes, the old style cooking that's in touch with the natural produce, the local produce that's seasonal and close to you, that is how you tap into the magic, the real essence of the magic of kitchen witchery, and I love it. So something that I actually only thought of when I was refilming this beginning section of the video were cuddly toys, because I've recently not been so well in myself, and yesterday I noticed my daughter left one of her cuddly toys downstairs, and my instinct was just to put it away or to take it upstairs to her bedroom, but they'd gone to bed, so I didn't do that. And then I suddenly thought, I really want to cuddle you, and it's this. I just can't even, I don't even know what these are called. What is this called? Does it even say? It doesn't even say what this is, but I call it like a snuffle bum. But it's got these amazing sequins that do the flippy thing. And it's just so cute. It actually came in this big egg, this massive plastic egg that, oh my goodness. Rosie wanted it though, so we let her have it. It was a treat. A while ago she got this, and this thing came out, and oh my goodness, it is like the cutest thing. And I just realised last night, you know, I actually need to cuddle this. And it sat by me, and I cuddled it, and then I brought it to bed with me, and it was so nice to have it. And I thought, actually, it made me think of Lisa Pepez, because Lisa is always talking about the inner child and how cuddly toys actually speak to her inner child, and she considers that part of her sort of magical life. And I think that's so true, because there's so much magic that happens when you're a child. The role play, and I used to play with Barbies a lot, and I think that there was so much magic in that, just the way I played with it. And a lot of those things that I would play manifested in my adult life. You know, you would act it out. You'd act out the things that you wanted and your dreams, and so magical. And so I think as well they are not only great for things like self-healing work, if you're doing shadow work and stuff, and Lisa talks about this a lot, but also just from a perspective of like tapping into your inner magic, you know, that inner wonder, that inner childlike joy. Things like unicorns, dragons, pink things, they are all so magical and so special. And so, you know, having this in my possession for the last sort of 20 hours or so has been really, really special. And my daughter, you know, my daughter can have it back anytime she wants, but she's just been playing with other toys. She's not batted an eyelid. But yes, this stayed the night with me and it's so, so lovely. I enjoyed having this. I have this TED. This is the TED that I had when I was a baby. This TED actually got left at a museum somewhere in England once when I was very little, when I was like a toddler or in a pram or something, and I think it got dropped. Our family had left and then they realised I didn't have this, and they went back to the museum and apparently it was like propped up in the window sitting there. So this is just TED. That's his name, is Ted, and he is one of the Merry Thought teddy bears, and I think that they were quite famous, but I just love him. He's very, very well worn and very, very well loved. He has this sort of tatty nose, but he's my oldest and dearest cuddly toy, and he sits on my bookcase because he's very, very special. My newest mascot is this adorable little Pusheen witch. I've had my eye on this for a couple of years actually, and I just never got round to it, and it's so teeny and diddy. I really wanted a bigger one, but this is the biggest one I could find. But I absolutely love Pusheen. It's like, I don't know, it just totally reminds me of my cat Squeaky, and just, you know, the fluffy grey cat is just totally me. So this just brings me joy every day, and just sits up with my tarot decks, and it's just so magical and beautiful. It's like a little mascot. I love it. So going back again to natural items that you can connect to the earth with, obviously stick stones, roots, leaves, herbs, plants, flowers, botanicals, anything like that. In terms of sticks, I do adore sticks and foraging for sticks, and I have several magic wands that I have foraged for. Some I have kept completely raw as I found them, and a couple I have worked on, and this is one of my favourites. This is a branch that I found that had fallen, and what I did was I sanded it down. I still kept the little nodules and the character of the wand, and then I painted it all over with a light acrylic gold, and then the end of it where I would hold it is more paint, so it's clearly defined. And then I used a really fine gold wire and a quartz crystal to create the point. And I just love this. This is one of my favourite magical wands to use for workings when I do decide to use a wand. A lot of the time, as I said, I will use my hand, but it is really, really nice to have something that I created and that came from the earth. And I do think that wooden wands, when you have found the wood, there's something so magical about them, and you don't have to buy them. Obviously, people make them and you can buy them, but making it yourself is just so simple and so powerful and effective. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do if you can. Working with water, again at the seaside, you can pick up hagstones and shells, seaweed, things like that. I absolutely love working with shells. I work with shells quite a lot in my practice. I actually managed to collect quite a few. I know that sometimes taking stones and shells away from beaches is prohibited, so just watch that, check you're allowed to. Maybe 4 years ago, my husband and I took our little ones to the beach, and there was just an abundance of these beautiful shells. Like, there were so many, like so many. I didn't even like scratch the surface of how many there were, but I took maybe 30 and I created a set of runes with them. But I also used a couple for some healing magic as well that I was doing, and some self-love workings, and I do use them quite a lot in my practice, and I just think they're so powerful, so beautiful. So you can tap into the energy of water, obviously, and the ocean with the shells, but they also have this magical potency within themselves as well. I also think they're great for when you're traveling. You can use them as representations of the element of water as well. So now the video is going to revert back to the original video I filmed, so I hope that you enjoy the rest of the video, and thank you for watching. So shells are just perfect, that kind of thing. Stones as well, some beautiful stones. Sometimes my children will gift me with stones that they find. At different times of year, you'll also find different things as well. My son is always giving me little dandelions and buttercups, and I keep them on my altar and they dry out. I always forage things like pine cones and acorns, especially in the autumn. I use acorns for abundance magic quite a lot. Hazelnuts as well, in a similar kind of way. Conkers, they're kind of like treasure. I always remember at school finding a beautiful conker. It was like treasure, and I still have that sort of feel for it now, and so do my children, and it's beautiful. So, you know, the walk to school can just be so magical, and the walk around our local area can be really, really magical as well. So it's all kinds of things like that. And if you are getting more into the plants in your area, do get yourself like a plant identifier app. I have Picture This, it's fantastic. I would definitely recommend that. Some field guides that feature native plants that are local to you, so you can learn about them. For me, I would really like to invest in a herbalism course, because that's sort of where I'm going. But you can build up your knowledge about different herbs, different plants, different trees slowly. You know, it doesn't have to be something that happens straight away. Building your own garden as well can be part of that. Gardening is such a beautiful, beautiful practice to get you closer to the earth. And I found for me, my parents always gardened, and my husband's parents always gardened, and I was always baking in my free time when I was younger. When I worked in London and everything was really busy, I just baked in my spare time. But I always liked to have things that were edible in my garden. But I also love things like roses. Roses are just so beautiful, and in the past few years I've been investing in working in the garden more. I have a beautiful jasmine plant, we have a plum tree, we have our roses, we have mint, we have thyme, we have oregano, we have all kinds of herbs outside, and we don't have a very big space either. We have some strawberries and we have some tomatoes, we have some pots and such, and we are moving soon, so we're going to have a bigger garden, and we're really, really excited to build it up. It's going to be a new build, so we can create our garden the way we want, and we're very, very excited to do that and just build it up over time slowly. But definitely just connecting to the wild plants around me has been such an important part of my practice, and connecting to the land, connecting to the spirits of place, the genius loci, and yeah, really, really connecting to the earth where I am. And that is essentially where my practice is kind of centered at the moment and focused, a really sort of folk witch kind of path. So all of those natural kind of things that you can find that are treasures, you know, you can harvest those and they can be part of your magical practice, and they are mundane to some, but they are so truly magical to the heart of the witch, in my personal opinion. So all of those things would include plants and herbs, sticks, stones, roots, berries, bark, as long as they're not poisonous. Even if you are going that way, things like bones, as long as you are foraging them safely, cleaning them safely, being safe. I have not done that with bones myself. I would not be averse to it, but I would like to know what I'm doing more, so that would be something I'd have to research before I do it. Although I have kept some spiders and insects if I found them. I have a beautiful bumblebee that I found on my doorstep about a year ago that I have kept, and it is a beautiful, beautiful energy. I feel very closely connected to spiders, so I like to try to protect them as much as possible in areas like the bathroom where they can easily get drowned. It is very upsetting for me. And things like spiders' webs, I really like having spiders in my home. They help me to feel protected. I don't like old spiders' webs that are left and just hang everywhere. So if they are old and the spider is gone, I will dust it away. But if there is a spider living in it, I leave the spider, because I like them and I think they're doing a great job for me and my family, and it doesn't bother me because the rest of my house is really clean. And as far as I'm concerned, the spiders help to keep, you know, the nasty flies and bugs and stuff away. So all of those things that you can forage for or find on walks and such can be so magical. There is one other thing that I will add. I have a big chunk of bark that came from a tree. It's a really, really old beech tree in our field, and it actually collapsed after a storm a couple of years ago, and it very nearly fell on one of our neighbours. The energy of the tree is very, very, very powerful, and it's got a really protective guardian kind of energy to it. And what happened was the part of the tree that fell was so heavy it couldn't be moved, and so we had tree surgeons and such come and check it. Not us personally, but the management of our cul-de-sac. We made sure that the tree surgeons came and checked it and made sure it was safe to stay, but they also then had to bring in people to cut up what had gouged holes into the earth, cut up that tree and take it away. And when I next visited the tree, there were some pieces of bark just propped up against the tree. So that was a gift I felt, so I left an offering and I took that away, and it is a piece that I have with me that I consider to be a protective piece. Since we are moving, I'm actually thinking about returning it, but that is something I'm not sure about, so I need to work with the energy of the tree a little bit to understand what I should do in that circumstance. I'm going a little bit off-piste. So the next thing would be art supplies. So I have some Tombow brushes and I have some other like artist sort of brushes, and I have them so I've got all the colours in a different pot. These are again just recycled jars, but these are all the greys and the beiges and the white sort of nice tones that I like to use for journaling. And then I use these Uniball gel pens in my journals. Obviously pencils as well, sketching pencils. And I have some charcoal pencils here, which I really like to use as well. I have a number of sketchbooks and journals that I like to use for art. I have quite a lot of these kinds of journals. I also have some bigger kind of moleskin journals with the gridding, and I like to use different formats for different things. All the stationery supplies basically, even things like folders, binder folders, and sleeves, wallets to store printed out pages in as well. All of those things. Absolutely. I'm not saying you have to go out and buy them all at once, but whatever you need at any one time. If you need a folder, a binder, and some sleeves to store some stuff you've printed out in, if you need a journal, if you need a sketchbook, an art book, canvas, etc. for painting. All of those things. As I said before, my mum was an artist, so I grew up doing art, watercolours and such, so that is a big part of who I am. And then as I got older, I really loved oil painting. I have an easel I actually got from a charity shop. It was about £3. It's a big easel, it's fantastic. So things like that are essential for my art practice, because whilst I don't have a lot of time to work on bigger projects like paintings, and I have started to create a tarot deck which is just at sketch point at the moment, I haven't got a lot of time to invest in that at the moment. But in my journals I do like to sketch, draw, whatever comes up for me with tarot readings and spells, workings, rituals that I do. If there's any work to do there with shadow work as well, sketches come into it as well. Sometimes after meditations and reflections I'll be sketching. Also part of the work that I do with the herbs, the local plants, to me involves sketching them, and I really enjoy that process as well. So it's something that I always have lots and lots of pencils and pens and art materials, paints, etc., journals, folders, binders, stationery, art supplies, all of them, because for me it's a big part of my witchy practice as well as my personality and my personal life. Obviously paper is included in that, and I have, in addition to the sketchbooks and sketching paper and painting paper, I have obviously printer paper, which is really important because I print things out, especially for my tarot journal. It's really important. String, twine, I use this frequently when binding herbs that I foraged for using for smoke cleansing bundles. And again, things like ribbons, when you get a parcel and it's got a ribbon on it, or a birthday bag that's got a ribbon, I always save these because these are perfect to use in magic, in any kind of binding spells, not only binding from a kind of protective perspective or a banishing, but also like binding things to you, attracting things to you, not magic as well. So I always have these kinds of things in my witchy drawer as well. I do actually have a silver goblet that I consider to be quite witchy. I did pick that up secondhand on eBay, and it was very inexpensive, but it is silver, so I have to polish it occasionally. But I also have these little dinky wine glasses that I think we inherited from Tim's family, and I like to use these for offerings for the Morrigan. So often the Morrigan will ask for red wine, other times it might be whiskey. Usually Irish whiskey is best, but often we have Scotch whiskey, like a single malt Scotch, and from my experience, the Morrigan will not turn her nose up at a good single malt whiskey either. So it doesn't have to be an Irish whiskey, but ideally that's what I prefer for offering to the Morrigan. But in my experience, the Morrigan will very much accept a good single malt whiskey. Photo frames. I would say photo frames with photos of relatives. This is a photo of my grandparents. This lives on my ancestor altar, so photo frames are really key. Also, I purchased a photo frame last year and painted the back of it black, and I have that as a scrying mirror that I like to use, in addition to the quartz crystal ball that I have and the obsidian crystal ball, because sometimes I do like to use it like the flat surface. So it's really nice to use for crafts as well. More on the family items, I have this beautiful little bowl that I think was a mustard bowl that was my grandmother's. This is Spode bone china, so I think they're quite expensive now, and it says Provence, and it's got a serial number on it, and it has this little spoon inside. And I have kept things like charms and working spells in this. At the moment it is empty, but this is something that is very special to me and to my grandma as well. So I keep it near my ancestor altar, but I do use it for other things. I have also stored things like my children's hair in here before. I have put them in jars and put them away. So it's a very special piece that I have on my altar space. Another similar one is this beautiful little silver box, and it currently has some workings in it as well. This probably needs a little polish actually, because I believe it is silver and it's quite tarnished at the moment. But again, this is a beautiful family piece that I keep on my altar because it has very much sentimental value. So things like that you can use on your ancestor altar or on your normal altar, depending on what the item is. If it's a little bowl or a plate, you can use them as offering dishes as well, which is lovely to do. Along those lines as well, I have these little dishes that my father made me. He does woodwork, so this is a wooden offering dish, and I have a couple of these that I store crystals and stones and shells in. I also use them as offering bowls for the Morrigan. This actually sits next to my ancestor altar. It has some dandelions in here, a little acorn, some selenite, and some other little things in there that are special. Another item that ties in nicely with family items is jewellery, because you might have something that's been passed down through generations. Even if it's not a precious item, it can be very, very special. So I have some pieces that are from my grandmother and they are special. They are on my ancestor altar. Also pieces like this, I actually got this from my husband for Christmas last year. So although it's not a family heirloom, it is something that I feel that is very special, and I have charmed as well as I wear it. Same for my rings, they are all charmed to do certain things for me, especially when I'm out and about, and they help me to stay grounded and help me to have my protective boundaries around me. So charming your jewellery is another thing that you can do. I mentioned jars briefly before, but things like bottles like this that I have saved. This was a gin bottle and I like to use this for moon water. So obviously I do have to clean it out every time, but then I like to save moon water in it. To be honest, if I collect moon water in this, because it has been used and it has cork, I tend not to drink out of this one, but I will keep this for watering the plants or for adding into any spell work I do. I do have another more safe with a flip cap bottle that I use in the kitchen if I'm going to be drinking moon water, and I use that for collecting moon water if I'm going to be using it in that way, or making sun water or anything like that. So again, keeping them sort of separate, but reusing bottles in any case. And going back a little bit to the kitchen witchery, things like cacao and coffee. There's very little left in here, really need to refill this, but cacao and coffee very much use all the time in spell work, kitchen witchery obviously specifically, but I have used things like cacao before in oils, in making oils and such, and I do have some coffee in my herbal apothecary that I like to use in candle workings and such to speed workings up. This is going to sound really mundane, but you cannot go wrong with one of these chargeable lighters. This is just ideal to have. This doesn't need charging that frequently, but it's just so good to have. Also, because it's got this long stretchy thing, it means that you can get into candles that are getting burnt down to the bottom of their jars. It's much easier to light than using matches. I do like using matches, but it's much easier to light with something like this. Along the lines, of course, I'm talking about candles, and you know, candles are kind of witchy really, but to a lot of people they are just candles. I like to use these tea lights on a daily basis because I put them in my little oil burner with some oil on top. I tend to have wax in there and then essential oils, or sometimes incense, and these are compostable caps, and these are vegetable wax inside soy, and they are eco-friendly, and these are compostable. So I feel much better about using tea lights like this. They are a little bit more expensive, and I get a pack from Amazon every so often. They last for a really long time, but they are perfect, and yeah, I just feel better about them being compostable, of course. Little tea light holders, these were from the White company, which I love. It's a beautiful homeware company in the UK, and it's one of my favourites, so I've got a few of these. I have some in the kitchen and some in my bedroom, and I use them for magical purposes as well as just lighting a beautiful candle. So these might just be scented candles, but to a witch they are really highly powerful. So this is Tuberose Extreme. It's one of my favourite scents. It's a soya wax candle. I think I picked this up from Home Scents, but it's a beautiful candle that I do associate with my craft, and any candle, to be honest with you, even if it's scented, it does count. So for me, I make this witchy, and just the scent of it feels witchy. It just is. I do have a couple of cauldrons. One I use as a incense burner because it's quite a diddy vintage one, and then I also have a larger one that I do use for burning bay leaves, etc., that you may have seen in some of my previous videos. But I also like to utilise occasionally a pot like this. This is a massive Le Creuset fire safe pot, and I like to use these when I'm doing a big releasing or banishing kind of working. So if, for instance, I am doing a banishing working and I have a poppet made out of paper and string and I need to burn it, I will use this outside. So that is how I will do it safely and make sure, you know, that we are safe. And obviously it needs a good clean out afterwards. So I do like to use an item like this for burning larger things occasionally if I have to, and I will do that outside. And so I think having a fire safe saucepan is really, really handy if you're a witch. The next one might sound a little bit strange, but I have been used to wearing an eye mask for years, and these definitely, they support with things like astral travel and journeying and meditations, and it really, really helps obviously just to sleep. If you're struggling to sleep with lights and such, this is so vital for me to have. You know, I can't not have one of these anyway. So this is like a mulberry silk. I have a few of these and I cannot live without them, honestly, and they really, really do support my witchcraft practice because they help me to lucid dream and help me to astral travel and such, and it's something that I haven't really heard anyone speak about, but for me this is a really, really important tool to have for that, but also just to sleep. So again, a really mundane item, but something I really, really swear by in my practice. And another mundane item is of course makeup. So I've only bought a few bits here, but this is an hourglass foundation, and it's lovely because it's a stick, so you can draw on sigils onto your face before you blend them in if you want to do that. Again, similar with lip gloss, you can charm a lip gloss or a lipstick or a liner before you use them to improve your confidence, improve your self-esteem, to help you feel a certain way about yourself, to help to let others see you a certain way, all of those sorts of things. So I absolutely love these items for things like glamour witchcraft. So this is a Dior lip gloss, it's beautiful, and this is a Huda Beauty lip contour. Again, you could use an eyeliner or a lip liner, and you can use this to draw sigils on your body, on your person, underneath your clothes even. So that's a beautiful, beautiful way. I tend to do less of the sigil work on my skin and more imbuing the makeup with my intention and charming it as I put it on, and looking at myself and chanting spells or saying intentional words, you know, that just come to me about the way I want to feel as I put my makeup on, and that helps to enchant the day. It really, really does. It's magical. Similarly with perfume as well, and if you have a perfume that really makes you feel a certain way, you can absolutely charm it and you can use it. I tend to use oils, so when I'm putting oil on my neck, that's something that's very magical for me as well. So with making my own oils, I again recycle these Needles Yard bottles and any other facial oil bottles I have. Again, you know, make sure I sterilize them and then I mix my own oils. So I'll use something like this almond oil by Nice Scents, sweet almond oil as a base. And then I will use, yes, I suppose this is quite witchy, but also lots of people who aren't witches or lots of people who don't practice magic use essential oils and aromatherapy. So like Tisserand is one of my favourite brands. This is a tea tree organic pure essential oil, but I have so many different essential oils. One day I will have to do a video about essential oils and working with essential oils and aromatherapy. For me, it's something I grew up with because my mum took some courses in it and read lots of books, so she was always teaching me. This is kind of embarrassing, but when I was younger, in middle school, about 10 years old, there was a child in my class who always had head lice, and so me and my best friend were always getting head lice. I had them maybe 3 times one year, and my mum stopped using the chemically stuff and she just decided to make her own essential oil concoction, and it was incredible. It actually got rid of the head lice so much easier, so much faster than the chemical store-bought stuff. It smelled so much nicer, and my hair was so soft and beautiful afterwards, and it was gorgeous. Such a nice experience when you're going through something so horrible as head lice. It traumatized me, and I haven't had them since then. I think since I was about 10 or 11 I haven't had head lice, but my kids are now 4 and 6, so I'm kind of dreading the day when they come home with head lice. Anyway, side note, but on that, I do have a spray that I created, which is a spray with aromatherapy that helps to keep things like head lice at bay, and I did use that on my daughter's hair quite a lot when she had longer hair, and yeah, it worked a treat because obviously she didn't get them, but I made that really safely, made sure I followed a recipe. So I do know about aromatherapy and I have some books on aromatherapy, but it is something that working with essential oils, you really, really need to do some research before you just jump in. It's something that I have some background knowledge on, so that's why I'm confident doing it. But when I create oils, I make sure that I have the right amount of a base oil before I add my essential oils, and when I do, I only add 1 or 2 drops of each so that it is the right equivalent, so it's skin safe. I always like to make sure that they're skin safe, and if I'm making something like a facial oil, I will use even less because I do not want it to be in any way reactive. And working with some essential oils oils, when you use them neat, they can be fatal, especially for young or old people. Just because it's a plant extract does not mean it is safe, so you really need to be careful. They are very flammable as well, so you need to be careful about the way you store them, and also you can be very susceptible to sunburn if you use them on your skin, so you really need to do some research before you just jump in on it. But if it is something that you're interested in, then I would really highly recommend lots of different books. I mean, definitely something like the Tisserand brand is fantastic. They have some books, and the Neal's Yard brand have books as well on aromatherapy and essential oils, so you can start there. And there are some fantastic other books as well. One day I will have to do a video and share some of the books that I have and that I like to look at. But yeah, I think it is something that can be really enriching for your magical practice if you are interested in it, and especially herbs and plants and such. It can be really great, and I absolutely love making my own oils. I make an oil for the Morrigan, I make a glamour oil, and I've made some other oils as well, and they are all really special to me, and I just love crafting them. On a similar line, these are Epsom salts that I like to use in the bath. This is, I can't remember what brand this is, it's just a brand that you can find at a local pharmacy, and this one has got flavour to it. It's like a grapefruity flavour. Obviously you can't eat it, not that kind of flavour, but in the bath it's lovely. So sometimes if I am in a pinch and I want to have a spiritual bath, I'll put some Epsom salt in, I will put some Florida water or something like that in, and I'll just maybe throw some lavender or some calendula or some rose petals in, and I will just go. And it's a really nice way to have a quick spiritual bath in a pinch. So that's something I absolutely love, and again, recycled jar. So I swear by a soft fluffy cushion for things like meditation and for comfort. It's one of those things that the inner child really needs. For me, I think this is something that is really important. Of course, everyone has pillows and cushions, so you know, you get one that you like. This is just one that was from a local homeware shop. It was not too expensive, but I love it. I love the way it looks, I love the way it feels. It's so soft and fluffy, and this is something that for me in my practice it's great to sit on, to meditate with. I also prop up my book on this every evening when I read, so it has a lot of very mundane purposes, but I really need it for my spiritual practice as well. So I love this. Obviously I mentioned before wine, and I mentioned whiskey, and obviously coffee. Those things are fantastic for use in your own practice if you are creating a drink for yourself to take in energy or anything like that, but also to set your intention with your coffee, but also to make offerings to deities. Obviously depending on what deity you work with specifically and what offerings you want to make. Another way that you can add some magic to your everyday life is of course in your home, and this can come into your decor and the items that you choose, your furniture. I have a lot of antique furniture, so that feels very magical for me. Some of it is from family. Things like art as well, and again you can utilize things like sigil magic when you're painting your house. You can use sigils, paint sigils or draw sigils onto the wall. Things like keeping a chart of your child's height. I always think that's really magical, and I wish Tim and I had done that a little bit more, but we have not got anything like that, but I always think it's very magical when I see those. So there's lots of different ways that you can use mundane items around your home as well. I have a salt lamp in here that I consider to be very magical. So yeah, I think there's so many amazing things that you can do with your home to make it magical, make it perfect and special for you, and so many different ways that you can use these mundane things to make magic and create a practice that is authentically yours. Finally, I would say I don't think I can identify as a tech witch per se, but there is definitely an element of that for me, and I could not do that without an iPhone. I mean, I could do it with any phone really, but I have an iPhone, so iPhone and my laptop, which is an Apple MacBook Pro. So I currently have the glyph for Mercury on my iPhone, and I have the glyph on my phone because I was working through a course that I picked up from Aeolian Heart, and I will share a link to that website. Essentially, the creator has some courses around astrology, but also like tech magic and such, and yeah, it's something I'm really interested in. Obviously, I'm learning about astrology, so working with Mercury during this season has been really helpful for me, and just brought in opportunities and such. So that's kind of off topic, but it's one of the ways that I use my iPhone. Obviously I keep any articles or screenshot things, recipes and such in my phone. I keep a notes section where I write recipes down quickly and pinch, and I also subscribe to some of the more academic kind of paper research websites where you can get some books that are more esoteric and occult in nature, that are older books that are already online and available to download as PDFs. So I will always save them into my book section. So for instance, I found a digital copy of the Picatrix here. That was free, and I actually do have a hard copy of the book as well, but the Picatrix is in here. So there are lots and lots of texts that you can get in here for free. There's Robert Bruce, New Energy Ways, a study of Christian Kabbalah, Enochian Angel Magic from John Dee to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, that's a paper. The Tree of Life here, Study in Magic by Israel Regardie. So many important texts. Any coursework, Astral Projection, Ritual Magic and Alchemy by S.L. Mather McGregor's, and this is the Golden Dawn Masterclass. There's so many fantastic papers that you can get, journals and texts on here. Kabbalah Magic and the Great Work of Self-Transformation, a complete course by Liam Thomas Christopher. So lots and lots of things I have saved on my books to read and delve into. So that's an amazing free resource as well. But there's so many ways that you can connect. Obviously YouTube is fantastic, I'm here, and just so many different ways that you can connect with magic and work some tech magic. I have also used my phone to create a talisman for myself, and I have used protection magic to create boundaries on my phone. So I've created a sigil, and I have used my finger to draw that sigil into the screen of the phone and onto the back of the phone to keep me safe and to keep my boundaries secure when on social media and such. So there's so many things that you can do with your phone and with your laptop, etc. So that is such a powerful magical tool, even though it is mundane. So there have been so many things here that I've mentioned, and I'm so grateful if you are still here with me. If you have any other things that you want to add that you like to use in your magical practice that is kind of a mundane item, then do leave it below. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. Also do let me know if there's anything here that you haven't thought to use before that you'll be trying out. I'd love to hear. If you did enjoy the video, please do click the like button, give the video a thumbs up and share it with anyone as well who you think would be interested to hear some of these ideas. And if you'd like to see more from me around tarot, witchcraft, magic, spirituality, then please do think about subscribing. While subscribing, don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. So with all of that said, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.